Let's listen now to Mr. Eduardo Almeida, who is representing here today the Inter-American Development Bank. One of the aims is to improve people's life in Latin America and in the Caribbean through the openness of mind and the capacity of innovation, which are amongst the characteristics and the peculiarities of Christian charity. Please, Dr. Almeida.
Thank you very much. Good morning. First of all, I'm not going to talk in my mother language. I'll try to speak in English, so please, I'm sorry. Well, the other thing is I feel like in the middle of a sandwich because I can't really compete with Cardinal Tago as well as Alejandro. They're really very competent. It's going to be very difficult. And the next event is going to be the audience with the Holy Father. So when I told my friends that I would speak right before the Holy Father audience, he told me two things. Well, I have good news and bad news for you. Good news is that the auditorium is going to be full. And bad news is that nobody's going to pay attention to you. So this presentation aims to motivate us all to enhance the culture of innovation for development, based on Deus Caritas Est. Let me start by stating where I come from and my motivation for this presentation. I was born in a middle-class family in Brazil. My initial formation was very much influenced by the Benedictines, as Alejandro, and the Vincentians. I'm very glad to see AIC here and Michael Tio from the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. St. Benedict's search for excellence and his ora et labora way of living have always impressed me. On the other hand, in my spare time, at the age of 9, I started to accompany my father to a conference of St. Vincent de Paul, where I shared the Vincentian vocation of visiting the poor. The weekly visits to very poor families who lived with their 4 to 5 members in small shacks at the favelas of Rio de Janeiro taught me that there should be something clever and creative to do to promote the poor we visited. Later, by studying the life of St. Vincent de Paul, the inspiration of the conferences with his name, I realized that Vincent had the same feeling at the 16th and 17th centuries, when he said that charity should be inventive to infinite. When Pope Benedict XVI said that openness of mind is something which concerns the Church deeply at Deus Caritas Est, I really think he meant it. Openness of mind for me means to listen to others, particularly to listen to the poor. It also means for us to search for excellence, so we can best prepare to help the poor to transform their lives for the better. I think this is why we are all here. Imagine all these clever minds together in a meeting room covered by a glass roof, like a glass here, like a bubble. Outside, our clients watching and listening to us. The poor, the slaves of urban and rural underdevelopment, the immigrants, the refugees, the housewives who cannot feed their children. All these clients are looking at us, reunited in one of the most historical and beautiful cities in the world, and waiting for a creative solution, something nobody ever thought, something they cannot see at once, to help them get out of the situation they are and share God's creation in its plenitude. The subject of this reflection is innovation in development. I would like to start by reflecting about examples of most challenging global development issues we face today and about the definition of development. Then I wanted to reflect on the meaning of innovation and how to accomplish innovation in development. Finally, I would like to take the liberty of making a concrete proposal for us as members of the Church to work together to promote innovation in development. This is going to be done in only 12 minutes. So let's start by the development challenges. The world faces very complex development issues which cannot be solved by traditional approaches. Poverty and inequality in broad sense, slow growth of global economy, national regional conflicts, segmented globalization, meaning From one side, we allow free flow of capital, goods, drugs, and weapons. And from the other, we don't allow people to flow from one country to the other. Forced immigration, we reflect a lot about this challenge yesterday from heroic people who lived it. Modern slavery of unemployment, disaster and hunger due to climate change, urban insecurity and higher urbanization in emerging countries, and aging of the population. Solving these problems require new ways of thinking, real openness of mind, as Deus Caritas Est indicates. And as Michael Thiel has indicated yesterday, when he said, we must find creative way of working together, innovative, courageous, and audacious. Let me take just immigration as an example. There are about 244 million migrants in the world, being about 20 million of them refugees. The number of migrants has increased by 41% in the last 15 years. To make it more specific, a region that I know better, the number of children or teenagers who cross the southeast border of the USA has grown by 117% between October and December of 2015 in comparison with the same period in 2014. But in 2014, the US offered $1 billion to solve the problem. There was a regional commission which was put in place, and the number of most specialized professionals was hired, including from the institution that I work. So why is it growing? It's clear that the evident and traditional approaches are not solving the problem. We need innovation solutions. Given the global development challenges and their complexity, I believe that the fundamental questions for us today is, what does it mean for the church? What does it mean for us? I also believe that we leaders of the Catholic Church, we are best positioned to do something. From one side, we are creative by nature. Deus Caritas Est tells us very well that the whole world comes into existence by the power of God's creative world. If we are made in the image of God, creativity is part of our DNA and should be at the center of our mission. Innovation, for example, is at the core of the three pillars of the church mentioned by Cardinal Tagle this morning: word, sacraments, and charity. From another side, we are or should be enablers of the culture of the encounter proposed by the Holy Father. As he says, we can understand and help to solve the development challenges together with the people in need, the individuals, the communities, and the parish. Let me put this in more practical terms. Let's take again the case of migration to the US and Canada. How does a decision to immigrate start? It does not start by macroeconomic issues, the inflation, the exchange rate, the price of bonds or derivatives of the countries in Central America. These are just enablers. It starts by a family with a kid involved with a Mara, a gang, in a city like San Pedro Sula in Honduras, for example. This family is persuaded by a coyote who asks $3,000 to search for the paradise on the other side of the world, more precisely on the other side of the border. Who can change the life of this family? The municipality of San Pedro Sula by itself, the government of Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Mexico on the way, the government of the United States of Canada, and at the end of the line, the development agencies. Of course, everybody can collaborate. But it's necessary to understand the family's real motives, their decision criteria, be as poor as the people we serve, as St. Vincent de Paul said, and as Cardinal Tagle has said this morning. No family sends a kid to such a dangerous journey if there is no desperation. So the parish from the barrio, from San Pedro Sula can help, supported by the national and the international church, by the governments, and by the development agencies like mine. The parish at San Pedro Sula can try to solve what the Pope Francis called last week a humanitarian crisis by following his own commandment when he says, instead of treating the poor immigrants as statistics, we want to measure with names, stories, and families. Now, what would be a feasible solution for the problem? The answer is, we don't know. What we know is that the answer is not obvious. The traditional answers do not work. We must think out of the box. We also know that the parish alone cannot design and implement its out-of-the-box solution. It needs people like us to support them. Think about a number of other critical development cases. Take the case of Haiti, which I know very, very well because I lived there before, during and after the 2010 earthquake. How much intelligence has been put together, and how much money has been spent before and after the earthquake? The situation there has improved very little in the last 2 centuries. If you read the Haitian newspaper in 2004, then you read it in 2011, and then you read it today, you see election crisis, manifestations, poverty. The challenges have been the same over the years, maybe with different names or surnames. So again, the most obvious and evident answers do not work. A new creative and out-of-the-box approach should be used. And just to give you a practical impact of Unum, last year, Unum and PECAL, the Pontificio Concilio for Latin America, organized a meeting to discuss strategies to help Haiti. As a result of this meeting, as we speak today, a mission in Haiti is there to implement the education program from Pope Francis named Scholars, as most of you know. Now, after raising the need to implement out-of-the-box solutions to global development issues, I'd like to reflect with you about the meaning of sustainable and human development. Development is defined as a joint effort in which the beneficiary is the protagonist, as indicated yesterday by the head of the Caritas Spain in his question. Human development is the expansion of people's freedoms to live long, healthy, and creative lives. People are both the beneficiaries, the driver, and the drivers of human development as individuals and groups. For many years, people have struggled to measure development. The United Nations used to measure it by GDP per capita before the 70s. From then on, a number of indicators have been added and added and added. After last December, for example, the world will use 17 objectives measured by 169 indicators. This is too much complicated. However, if we analyze in depth the 17 objectives, we come up with 4 levers or 4 interventions of high impact: revenue generation, jobs, education, institutional development, and more recently, climate change mitigation. This can be proved by academically and practical cases. Indeed, academic analysis prove numerical correlations between development and these interventions. The practice leads to the same conclusion. Let's just take quickly the case of South Korea, Singapore, and Rwanda as examples. Very different cultures, very similar approach to development. In the 50s, South Korea had left from a civil war and presented high poverty levels. The investment in job creation, education, and institutional development led to the increase of GDP per capita by 25 times. The same exact thing did Singapore. Now let's take Rwanda, as most of us know. They went through a civil war, which massacred 500,000 people in 1995. The country was totally destroyed. Under the leadership of an inspired president, Paul Kagame, they invested in job creation and institutional development, making them become sort of a star of American development. So focusing on job creation, education, and institutional capacity enhanced by local leadership is key to generate sustainable development. As always, the question is, what does it mean for the church, for us? Following the rationale from before, the church is best positioned to help leaders of developing countries to implement these turnaround strategies. From one side, as Deus Caritas Est indicates, we are not moved by the Eros love, but the agape love. So we can be independent enough to motivate local leaders to implement innovative strategies with no political or economic self-interest, because we do it as a demand of the gospel, taking Cardinal Tagle words. From another side, as an institution, the church excels in education development. We have been good at education for centuries. I'm not saying the church does not invest today in education, but I'm confident that it's imperative for the church, for us, to lead a global initiative to enhance education and institutional capacity, but in a creative way, putting innovation as a streamline. Let me now move to the next subject very quickly, the reflection about innovation per se. Innovation can be defined as the transformation of new ideas into economic and social solutions. So innovation is much more than creativity. Over the history, a number of innovations have changed the way people live for the better. But it has been after the advent of the internet in 1969 that innovation has been faster. Microprocessors, smartphones, artificial intelligence, remote medicine, robotics, 3D impression, autonomous vehicles including drones, big data. Technology innovation leads to imagination, intelligence, knowledge, and consequently development. Gurus in economy like Edmund Phelps have proven that innovation leads to economic growth. Phelps formally calls it a modern and dynamic economic, the one which is able to generate ideas. This is what's imperative, to be able to generate and implement new ideas. The other side of the coin, however, is shocking. Technology innovation has not resulted in less inequality. The fourth industrial revolution, which was the focus of this year's World Economic Forum in Davos, is a new wave of connectivity and interaction among parts, machines, and humans. It will make production systems as much as 25% more efficient. These are good news. But recent studies, however, show that 5 million jobs will be lost until 2020 due to automation. In addition, a recent Oxfam study shows that despite the gains with technology innovation, inequality has grown significantly in the last 2 decades at the global level. Imagine this: 85 richest individuals in the world have as much wealth as the poorest half of the global population, 85 people. Another negative aspect of innovation, which is very important for us at the meeting today, is that social development innovation has not grown as fast as technology innovation. From your memory, what have been the most well-known social development innovations in the last 50 years? Please take a moment to think about this. On one of the few of them, microfinance, maybe the only one, was developed when a very well-reputed professor of economics from Massachusetts Institute of Technologies, Muhammad Yunus, literally decided to go down the hill of his office in Bangladesh to understand why street vendors are eternally poor. This is a very good example of the culture of encounter preached by the Holy Father. Do you remember any other emblematic social development innovation in the last decades? Again, what's the meaning of this fantastic technology evolution with its upsides and downsides for us, institutions of the Church? Indeed, our Catholic institutions are best positioned to enhance social development innovation. The question is how? Well, innovation theory and practice define at least 4 factors of success. I won't have time to go very much deep into all the four factors, but I'll go very quickly, because I think it's worthwhile to understand them and evaluate our own institutions if they are prepared to maximize them. First, innovation communities are open-minded, decentralized, and risk-takers. When Pope Benedict XVI decided to put the Vatican into the social media, he invited a 25-year-old Catholic writer and speaker, Brandon Vogt, to advise him. Second, innovative communities build knowledge networks, partnerships. No institution, nobody knows all aspects of a subject, nobody. The complexity of the problems today demands complex and systemic knowledge management mechanisms. On the other hand, innovation solutions are abundant. We can say that almost all ideas are known by somewhere or someone in the world. For sure, partnerships should consider the remarks made by Cardinal Tagle this morning about the ideological colonization, as well as his advice to start by relationship and friendship. A third factor is that innovative institutions implement mechanisms of enhancement of innovation climate. An innovation climate is the one which forces people to dissent, to challenge what we do and how we do in a constructive way, to improve how we do things. We should motivate the question, what if? What if we use a different technology, a different approach? What if we invite the youth to make their points? What if we are wrong? And fourth, last but not least, innovation institutions are led by innovators. The most effective way of enhancing a culture of innovation is by the example, coming from above, from leaders who look for something different and better to reach the mission and award people to do the same. I think it's worthwhile for us, leaders of the Unum organizations, to think about these four characteristics of innovative institutions: open-minded, decentralized, and risk-taker, partnerships, build innovation climate, and lead by innovators. Now, I take the liberty of finishing with a concrete proposal. What if we develop a common project for Unum so it becomes a hub to promote innovation and development, following the Catholic values and the factors of success of innovation institutions? The best way to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Deus Caritas Est is to take its commandment, to open our minds and put it in practice. Why not, for example, focusing on education and creating a Unum education lab? Maybe it's a crazy idea. We know this is not an easy task. Innovating to promote the poor is not a one-shot job. Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, always said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. As I said, I worked in Haiti for years, and I finished by sharing one of the most marking experiences I had in my life. One day, I was sitting very comfortably in my car, an armored car, with air conditioning and a bodyguard, as some foreigners do, unfortunately, in Haiti. We were passing through one of the crowded streets, full of street vendors, like this one. There was a truck driver right in front of us, and he was trying to park in front of where we were, in the pathway. While maneuvering, he passed onto a fruit basket from a lady, a street vendor, squeezing her fruits. In other words, he squeezed all her working capital for the ones who have some financial background. So he squeezed everything she had for the next days, which should take days to recover. I left the car and went to talk with the lady, the street vendors, and asked her how she was and how I could be of any help. And then her answer was a lesson which I'll never forget. She said, "Don't worry, tomorrow I will start again." Innovation is very difficult and requires a lot of perspiration. But if it's hard for the poor, why would it be easier for us? Thank you very much.
Nos